Picture a room so dark that you cannot see your own hand pressed against your own face. Now fill it with the breathing of 6 other people, none of whom you can see either. Add the smell of wood smoke that never fully leaves the walls, the rustle of something small and quick, moving through the straw beneath you, and the absolute certainty that if the fire in the middle of the floor goes out completely, someone in this room might not wake up in February. That's a house in the year 1300. 1 room, 1 fire, 1 family, plus the animals on the other side of a wattle partition, close enough that you can hear the ox shifting its weight in the dark. A place where night is not the gentle end of the day. Night is a country of its own, with its own laws, its own dangers, and its own strange freedoms, and every single person alive has to cross that country from one edge to the other every night for their entire life. We're going back there tonight, not to watch medieval people work or fight or build cathedrals. We're going to do the one thing history books almost never talk about, the thing that took up 1/3 of every medieval life. We're going to sleep, or rather, we're going to try, one night, one person, from the last light of evening to the first light of dawn. Everything they felt, heard, feared, and dreamed. And here's the thing that's going to surprise you. Almost everything you assume about sleep, the 8 solid hours, the private bedroom, the idea that waking at 2 in the morning means something is wrong with you, all of that is modern. In 1300, nobody sleeps the way you sleep. They sleep twice, in 2 separate shifts, with an hour or 2 of quiet wakefulness in between. And that midnight hour has its own name, its own customs, its own entire hidden culture that we've almost completely forgotten. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I still have no clue whether anyone actually sleeps to them, or whether you're all just lying in the dark listening to a stranger describe fleas. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. Pull the blanket up. This one is literally about going to bed. Here we go. The problem starts before the sun is even down. You're standing in the doorway of your house, and you're watching the light die over the fields, and you're doing the arithmetic that every villager in England does at this exact hour, every single evening of the year. How much light is left? How much work is not finished? And which of those 2 numbers is bigger? Tonight, the work is bigger. It is always bigger. This sun does not care. Your name is what? Walter, if the priest is asking, Walter, son of Osborne, but nobody has called you Walter since your christening. You are 19 years old, and you live in a village called Longcote, a smear of perhaps 30 houses along a muddy street in the middle of England, and you have lived here your entire life, and unless something extraordinary happens, you will die here too. That is not a tragedy. That is just the shape of the world. 90 people out of every 100 alive right now live like you do, in a village, on the land, under a lord, under the sky. It is late October. The year is 1300, though you would not put it that way. You would say it is the 28th year of King Edward's reign, or you would say it is the eve of Saints Simon and Jude, because in your world time is measured in kings and saints, not in numbers. The harvest is in, the ploughing for winter wheat is half done, and the light is going. The cold has already arrived. It came in through the door an hour ago, and it will not leave until April. You can feel it right now, working its way through the wool of your tunic, finding the gap at your throat, settling into the perpetual crack on the knuckle of your right forefinger, the one that opens every autumn and does not close until spring. When you flex the hand, the crack pulls and stings. You've stopped noticing that you notice it. Behind you, inside the house, Your mother is banking the fire. You can hear the scrape of the wooden shovel against the hearthstone, the soft collapse of embers being gathered into a mound. Ahead of you, at the far end of the village, the church tower of St. Andrew stands black against a sky, the colour of a fresh bruise, purple going to grey, going to nothing. Somewhere up in that tower, old Simon the sexton is climbing the ladder to the bell, the way he's climbed it every evening for 30 years, and in a few minutes he's going to ring the sound that ends the day for everyone within earshot. The curfew bell. You have heard that word your whole life without ever thinking about what it means. Curfew. It comes from the French, couvre-feu, cover the fire. That is not a metaphor. That is an instruction. When the bell rings, every household in the village is supposed to cover its fire, rake the embers together, cap them with a ceramic lid, or bury them under ash, and put the day to death. Because a village like yours is made of timber and straw and thatch, 30 houses standing shoulder to shoulder, and a single untended flame on a windy night can eat all of it before matins, not damage it, eat it. Whole villages have vanished between midnight and dawn, and everyone knows the name of at least one that did. So the bell is not a suggestion. The bell is the law, and behind the law is the fear, and the fear is older than the law. But the bell is not rung yet, and there is still one job that cannot wait, which is why you are standing in the doorway with a wooden bucket in each hand, and your breath already showing white in the air. The ox needs water. The ox always needs water. His name is Blackie, which took the family no imagination at all, and he is worth more than everything else your household owns put together, more than the house itself if you're being honest. And if Blackie goes into the night thirsty, he will low and shift and bang the partition until nobody sleeps. And worse, a thirsty ox is an ox that sickens, and an ox that sickens is a family that starves next year, because no ox means no ploughing, and no ploughing means no bread. The whole chain of your survival runs through the wet black nose of that animal, and everybody in the house knows it, which is why you are the one going to the well in the cold instead of your little brother, because you're the one they trust not to spill. You step out into the street. The mud has begun to stiffen with the evening frost. It crunches faintly at the edges of the ruts and gives way in the middle, so every step is two sensations, a crackle and then a slide, and you walk the way everyone walks here in autumn, slightly wide, weight back, reading the ground with your feet because your eyes are busy elsewhere. Your shoes are turn shoes, single pieces of leather sewn inside out and then reversed, and the sole of the left one has worn to the thickness of parchment. You can feel every stone through it. You can feel the cold coming up through it like water through cloth. The village around you is finishing its day all at once, and you can hear every part of it. Somewhere behind the Aldith house, a pig is screaming, which means the Aldiths are doing their November slaughter early, and the smell of blood and scorched bristle drifts down the street and mixes with the wood smoke, and your stomach, traitor that it is, growls at it. 3 doors down, Maud the widow is shouting at her chickens, herding them into the house for the night, because chickens left outside are chickens donated to the foxes. From the direction of the green comes the knock and clatter of someone stacking firewood in a hurry, racing the bell. And under all of it, everywhere, the smoke. 30 fires being banked at once, 30 streams of smoke leaning east in the small wind, and the whole village smells like the inside of a chimney, which is a smell you do not smell anymore, the way a fish does not smell water. The well is at the crossing where the street meets the lane to the mill, a low stone ring with a windlass and a rope that everyone complains about and nobody replaces. The rope is furred with age and damp, and when you grip it, tiny fibres stand up against your palm like the hairs on a nettle. You hook the first bucket, let it drop, hear the hollow knock of wood on stone, then the slap of water taking it. The windlass handle is slick with the evening's frost. You wind. The muscles across your shoulders take up the load in a way that is so familiar it is almost restful. The ache of the days ploughing, waking briefly, and then settling, like a dog turning over. While you wind, you look at the sky, because everyone looks at the sky. All the time, the way you look at your phone. The sky's the only news service in Longcoat, and tonight the sky's telling you two things. First, there will be frost, a hard one, the first proper frost of the year. The air has that clean metallic taste like sucking on a knife. Second, there will be a moon, 3/4 full, rising late. That matters more than you can easily explain to someone from a lit world. A moonlit night and a moonless night are two different countries. On a moonless night, the darkness outside is total, absolute. A black so complete that men have walked into ponds they have known since childhood and drowned 20 feet from their own doors. It happens. It happens often enough that the coroner's rolls, the county death records of your era, are full of it. Fell into a ditch and drowned. Returning from the alehouse in the dark. Fell from the bridge in the dark. Mistook the path in the dark. In your world, darkness is not an inconvenience. Darkness is a cause of death, listed right alongside fever and falls and the flux. Tonight there will be a moon. Good. Because tonight of all nights, you are going to need to see. Here is the thing you have been trying not to think about all day. The thing that has been sitting in your stomach like a swallowed stone. Tonight is your night to watch. Every village must keep the watch. That is not custom, that is statute. The Statute of Winchester, 15 years old now, proclaimed at every market cross in England. From Ascension to Michaelmas, and by your village's own habit well beyond it, men shall keep watch by night at every gate and street, and strangers moving in the dark shall be stopped and held until morning. In a town there might be paid watchmen. In Longcoat there is just the roster, house by house, turn by turn, and tonight the turn has come around to the house of Osborne, and Osborne's knees are ruined, and Osborne's eldest son is you. Which means that tonight you will sleep the first sleep like everyone else, and then, when the rest of the village wakes at midnight and murmurs and prays and turns over and goes back down into the second sleep, you will get up, put on every piece of wool you own, take a horn and a billhook, and stand in the freezing street until the eastern sky turns grey. You and Hugh the smith's man, the two of you, the entire police force of a sleeping world. You've done it before, 4 times. Nothing has ever happened. You tell yourself this while the second bucket comes up, water slopping over the rim, shockingly cold where it hits the back of your hand and runs up under your sleeve. Nothing ever happens. Except that this week, something has been happening. 2 nights ago, Roger at the far end by the mill woke in the black middle of the night because his dog would not stop not barking, worse than barking. That low continuous growl that dogs save for things they can smell but not see. And in the morning the hasp on his grain shed was bent, pried at, not broken. Someone had been working at it, in the dark, patient, and had stopped only when the dog began. Last night it was the Aldiths' turn to find footprints in the soft mud behind their fold, a man's feet, alone, going nowhere honest. There is someone in the fields, some stranger, some vagrant, some outlaw, slipped out of the forest 8 miles north, living in the ditches and hedges and waiting for the village to sleep. Harvest is in. Every shed in Longcoat is full of grain. To a starving man in the dark, this village is one long unguarded larder. And tonight the man standing between him and it is you. You carry the buckets back with the yoke across your shoulders, and the weight of them, 60 pounds of water swinging in the cold, presses the wooden yoke down into the muscle beside your neck, and you walk with the short, flat-footed steps of a man carrying water, and all the way down the street the light keeps dying, and the doorways you pass are amber rectangles going dark one by one as the fires get covered, and you count them the way you have counted them your whole life without knowing you were counting. Then the bell begins. It comes down from the tower in slow single strokes, unhurried, enormous in the quiet, and you can feel each stroke arrive in your chest a half heartbeat after your ears, that low, bronze hum that lives in the sternum. Simon rings the curfew 40 times. He says one for each day of Lent, though your father says he just likes the number, and by the 10th stroke the street is empty, and by the 20th the last doors are closing, and by the 30th the village of Longcoat has effectively ceased to exist as a public place. The street belongs to the frost now, and the dogs, and later, to you. You duck through your own doorway with the buckets, and the warmth and the smell of them home close over your head like water. Let me tell you what home is, because if you're picturing a cottage from a postcard, stop. Home is one room, 30 feet long and 14 wide, and you know those numbers not because anyone measured, but because the whole building is made of 5 timber crucks spaced a rod apart, and everything in your world is measured in rods and feet and the length of your father's arm. The walls are wattle and daub, woven hazel rods plastered with a mix of clay, dung, straw and horsehair, and where the daub has cracked by the door you can see the weave underneath like the bones of the house showing through its skin. The floor is earth packed by 100 years of feet, swept every day and still never clean, strewn with old straw and new rushes that whisper when you walk. The roof is thatch, a yard thick, black with 50 years of smoke on the inside, alive on the outside with sparrows and mice and, everyone swears, one particular rat that no dog has ever caught. There is no chimney. Read that again, because it changes everything about the night you're about to spend. There is no chimney. There is a hearth in the middle of the floor, a ring of flat stones, and the smoke goes up and finds its own way out through the thatch and through a gabled vent at the ridge, and on its way it fills the upper half of the room, always, a permanent, slow-moving ceiling of smoke that begins at about the height of your head, which is why everyone in your world stoops slightly indoors, why the useful life of the house happens in the bottom 5 feet of it, why your eyes sting faintly all winter, and why everyone you know coughs like a lifelong smoker, because in a sense every one of them is. And there is no privacy. The word barely exists. At the west end of the room, behind a woven partition that comes up to your chest, is the byre, and in the byre is Blackie the ox and 2 sheep brought in for the cold, and the reason the animals live inside is not sentiment, it is heat. A full-grown ox puts out warmth like a banked fire, steady all night, and in January the difference between a house with a beast in it and a house without is the difference between shivering and sleeping. You will spend tonight, like every night of your life, sleeping downwind of an ox. The smell of him, grassy, ammoniac, enormous, is not a bad smell to you. It is the smell of the temperature being survivable. Inside, the household is arranging itself for the night, and everybody has a job, and the jobs happen in the same order every evening, an unspoken liturgy older than anyone living. Your mother Emma is finishing the fire. This is her office and hers alone, and she would no more let your father do it than she would let him bake. Watch her hands, because her hands know something. She has raked the embers into a tight mound at the centre of the hearthstone, and now she takes the couvre-feu itself, the curfew, and this is the thing most people do not know. The curfew is an object, a heavy dome of fired clay, like half a great jug, with a handle on top and small holes around its skirt, and she settles it down over the ember mound the way you would tuck in a child, twisting it slightly so its rim bites into the ash. Under that dome the embers will neither die nor live. They will smoulder, starved and patient, all night, and in the black cold of tomorrow's dawn she will lift the dome and lean down and breathe on them, and the fire will come back. Because here is a fact of your world that is hard to feel from a world of matches. Fire is difficult to make and easy to keep. Striking a new fire with flint and steel and dry tinder, with numb hands on a damp morning, can take the better part of an hour, and an hour of a winter morning is worth money. So fires in your world are not lit mostly. They are maintained. The fire under that clay dome has, in some technical sense, been burning since before you were born. Your mother received it from her mother-in-law the way she received the house. If it ever fully dies, she will not strike a new one. She will walk to a neighbour with an iron pot and carry home a living coal, and half the hearths in Longcoat are cousins of each other in exactly this way. The village does not have 30 fires. It has one fire in 30 pieces. While she does this, your father is doing the doors. He drops the oak bar into its brackets across the front door, and the sound of it, that flat wooden clunk, is the true end of the day, more than the bell was. Then he checks the shutters. There is no glass in your world, not in a house like yours. Glass is for churches and lords. The 2 small windows are just holes with wooden shutters, and he pins them closed, and with the door barred and the shutters pinned, the house is sealed, and the only light left in the world is the dull red seam glowing at the skirt of the curfew dome, and one rushlight. The rushlight is your little sister's job, and she is proud of it in the way that only an 8-year-old given control of fire can be. A rushlight is not a candle. Candles are wax or good tallow, moulded, expensive, and in your house they come out perhaps for a death or a wedding. A rushlight is a length of dried rush, a marsh reed, peeled down to its pith with one thin spine of skin left to hold it stiff, then drawn through hot mutton fat and cooled. It burns like a long thin match, held at an angle in an iron pinch clip on a stand, and it gives about as much light as a modern birthday candle, and it lasts, if it is a good one, half an hour. Your sister Alice made this batch herself in September, peeling rushes until her thumbnails were soft, and she lights one now from the last free ember before the dome goes down, and that single, trembling point of flame is the entire lighting budget of the household for the evening. By that light, supper. And I will be honest with you, supper is not the event you are hoping it is. Supper is the small meal. Dinner, the big meal, happened at midday. What is going around now is what is left. A pot of pottage that has been sitting warm at the hearth's edge since noon. Barley and onions and cabbage and dried peas boiled to surrender, thickened with oatmeal, flavoured with a knuckle of bacon that has flavoured 3 pots already this week, and will flavour 1 more before anyone is allowed to actually eat it. Each of you gets a wooden bowl and a horn spoon and a thick trencher of yesterday's bread. The dark bread, maslin, wheat and rye, mixed, dense enough to knock a man down. The pottage is bland and hot, and there is enough of it, and after 12 hours of following a plough, bland and hot and enough is a feast. You eat leaning toward the rushlight with your elbows on your knees, and the warmth of the bowl soaks into your cracked hands, and the crack on your right forefinger stings when the salt from the bacon finds it, and you eat anyway, faster. And with supper, ale. Everyone drinks ale, including Alice, including the baby when there was a baby. Not because medieval people are drunks, but because ale here is food, thin small ale, brewed weak from the second and third waters of the mash, a few days old, faintly sweet, faintly sour, safer than the well in August and more nourishing than the well always. Your mother brews it herself in the lean-to, like most wives in the village, and 4 times a year the ale taster comes around, an actual manor official whose entire job is drinking everyone's ale and finding the ones who water it, and your mother has never once been fined, and she mentions this approximately weekly. Over the bowls the day gets talked out, quietly because the night is already pressing on the house and voices drop on their own after curfew. Nobody decides it. It just happens. Your father says the far strip on the north field will take 2 more days of ploughing if the frost holds off, 3 if it does not. Your mother says the Aldith pig screamed for too long, and someone should tell Aldith his knife wants sharpening, and that she heard from Maud, who heard from the miller's wife, that the stranger in the fields was seen at dusk yesterday crossing the fallow, and that he is a big man, and that Maud says he has a soldier's walk. Your father grunts at that in the particular way that means he does not believe it and is worried anyway. Alice asks if the stranger will come tonight, and there is a small silence with the ox breathing in it, and your father says the watch will see to it, and does not look at you, which is his way of looking at you. Nothing ever happens, you tell yourself again. The stone in your stomach does not move. Then the last small rituals, each one tiny, each one older than the church tower. Your father takes the iron trivet off the hearth, so no one steps on it in the dark. Your mother sets a covered jug of small ale and 1 cup on the shelf by the bed. The night jug, because everyone wakes in the night, that is understood, that is planned for, and a person who wakes should be able to drink without falling over the furniture. Alice carries the rushlight, cupping the flame with her whole body like a relic, while the beds are opened. And your grandmother, who's been silent all evening in her place nearest the hearth, wrapped to the eyes in a rug of sewn sheepskins, says the thing she says every night when the shutters are pinned, the thing her grandmother said, half prayer, half weather report from a darker century. God keep this house and all in it, from fire and flood and the man in the night. Amen. And everyone murmurs amen, even your father, even you, because you are 19 and above such things, and you would not skip it for a shilling. Now, the bed. Let's talk about the bed, because you are going to spend half this story in it, and it is not what you think. There are 2 beds in the house for 7 people, and that is 1 more bed than most houses on this street can claim, and your mother is quietly vain about it. The great bed, at the east end away from the byre, is a low timber frame strung with ropes, and on the ropes a mattress, and the mattress is a giant linen sack, a tick stuffed with straw. New straw, as of 3 weeks ago, because the golden rule of the whole village is that after harvest you restuff the beds, and for a few glorious weeks in autumn every bed in Longcoat is fat and crackling and smells like a field, before winter flattens them all into pancakes again. The great bed belongs to your father and mother, and to Alice, and to your grandmother when her hip is bad, which is to say the great bed belongs to 4 people, and if that sounds crowded to you, understand that nobody here has ever once in their life conceived of sleep as a solitary activity. Sharing a bed is not a hardship. Sharing a bed is central heating. A bed with one person in it is a cold bed, and everyone knows the saying, and there are versions of it in every language in Europe. One body is no body in winter. The second bed, yours, shared with your brother Nick, who is 14 and kicks, is not really a bed at all. It is a pallet, a straw tick laid on a low platform of planks to lift it off the earth floor. Because the floor is where the cold lives and the damp lives and the things that run in the night live. And the first law of medieval sleeping is get off the floor, even 4 inches off the floor. 4 inches is the difference between sleeping on earth and sleeping on furniture. Actual floor sleeping, on loose straw with a log for a pillow, is for the poorest of the poor and for servants in great houses, which tells you something about great houses. You bank the straw of the pallet with your hands, working it toward the middle where the 2 of you have flattened it, and the straw resists and crackles, and gives off its dry gold smell with the faint mouse taint underneath, and stalks prick through the linen tick, and catch at the wool of your hose. Over the tick goes a sheet, one sheet, coarse hemp linen, washed rough, the texture of a sail. Over you both will go a wool blanket, felted with age, heavy as a wet dog, and over that the coverlet sewn sheepskins, and over that tonight, because of the frost, your 2 hooded cloaks spread crosswise. Bedding is wealth in your world. In wills, real wills from your century that still survive, people leave beds and blankets by name item. My best coverlet to my daughter Agnes item, my second best bed. A feather bed, a mattress stuffed with actual down, is worth more than an ox, and there is exactly one in Longcoat at the Reeves house, and his wife lets people feel it. And now the going to bed itself, which has an order, like everything. You do not undress exactly. You unbuild. Off comes the outer tunic, over the head, hung on its peg where you can find it blind. Off come the shoes, set together, toes pointing toward the door, and that is not tidiness, that is fire drill, that is your grandmother's law. Shoes toward the door, so that in the dark, in smoke, in panic, your feet fall into them facing the right way. Off come the hose, unlaced from the belt of your braze, and the cold of the room takes your bare legs immediately like stepping into a pond. What stays on is the shirt and braze, the linen underlayer, and in weather like this the hood, a wool hood with a short shoulder cape, and if the image of a family lying in bed in nightcaps and hoods strikes you as comic, spend one night with your head uncovered in an unheated room in November, and you will be converted by morning. Half your heat leaves through your skull. Everyone here knows that without knowing why. You lie down. Nick is already in, curled on his side of the dip, radiating 14-year-old heat, and you fit yourself back to back with him the way you have every night since he left the great bed. 2 spoons facing outward, shoulder blades touching, and through the 2 shirts you can feel the knobs of his spine and the furnace of him. The straw settles under your combined weight with a long collapsing whisper. The sheepskins come up to your jaw. Your feet find the cold zone at the bottom of the bed and retreat, and then push back down again by inches, annexing territory, warming it, the nightly reconquista of the foot of the bed. Alice's rushlight has perhaps a finger's breadth left. Your mother tells her to pinch it. There is the small ceremony of Alice blowing instead of pinching because she's afraid of the hot clip, the smell of the dying wick, fat and smoke and burnt reed, and then the dark. I need you to sit inside this dark for a moment, because it is the main character of this entire night, And you, listening to me in a world where darkness has been extinct for a century, have never met it. There is no light. I do not mean it is dim. I mean the seam of red at the base of the curfew dome is the only photon source in the building, and from the bed it is hidden behind the settle, and therefore the room does not exist. Open your eyes, nothing. Close them, the same nothing. Hold your hand before your face, and there is no hand. There is only the knowledge of a hand, proprioception without proof. Outside there is no street light, no sky glow, no neighbour's window, because every hearth in the village is under its dome and every shutter is pinned, and the nearest town with so much as a lit gatehouse is 15 miles away, and its glow does not reach even the bottom of your sky. Until the moon rises, the world outside your walls is as black as the inside of the earth. And so, with sight gone, the night hands you over to your other senses, and they rise to meet it. And this is the medieval night. This is how every person you have ever heard of, every king, every saint, every mason of every cathedral, spent a third of their existence, lying in blackness, in a warm knot of other people, listening. Listen with him now. Closest of all, Nick's breathing, already gone long and slow, the little catch at the top of each breath he has had since he was a baby. Beyond him, the pop and tick of the fire settling under its clay dome, a sound like a beetle in the wall. The actual beetle in the wall, the death watch, tick, 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 which the old people say counts out the hours of a dying man, and which is really just an insect knocking its head against oak to find a mate, and knowing that does not help at 2 a.m. The great bed creaks as 4 bodies negotiate. Your grandmother's breath whistles. The ox shifts his enormous weight from 3 legs to the other 3, and a sheep stirs against the wattle, and the wattle creaks, and something mouse, always a mouse, runs a yard of thatch overhead with a sound like fingers drumming once on a table, and under everything, around everything, the wind finds the house. Not a storm, just the night air moving, but a house of wattle, and thatch is not sealed the way your house is sealed. It breathes, it leaks, and the wind plays it like an instrument. A low flutter at the eaves, a whisper at the shutter pins, one specific moan at the northwest corner that your family has argued about for years. The house talks all night. You have heard this same conversation every night of your life, and it is the sound beneath the sound of every dream you have ever had. You are warm now, at the core at least. Your feet have won their war. The ache of the ploughing is draining out of your shoulders and down through the straw into the earth. The stone in your stomach is still there. The watch, the stranger, midnight coming. But the warmth is arguing against it, and the warmth is winning, and the ale is winning, and somewhere between one breath and the next, on the eve of Saint Simon and Jude in the 28th year of King Edward, you fall off the edge of the day. This is the first sleep. Remember that name. Because in 3 hours the whole village is going to wake up on purpose, and that is when the night really begins. The first sleep is deep in the way that only the sleep of physical labour is deep. You do not descend into it, you are dropped. A 12-hour day behind an ox does something to a body that no amount of modern tiredness resembles. It empties the muscles like wrung cloth, and the body, given permission, simply stops. For the first hour you do not move at all. Nobody in the house moves. 7 people and 3 animals lie in the dark like the crew of a sunken ship. But even this sleep is not the sealed private room that your sleep is. It is porous. Sounds come and go through it. When the ox coughs, some part of you notes it, files it, ox, fine, and lets you sleep on. When a dog starts up at the far end of the village, the same doorkeeper in your skull tilts its head, counts the barks, 3, 4, then silence, then nothing, a fox, and stands down. You have never in your life slept out of earshot of other lives, and so your sleep has grown around them, the way a tree grows around a fence. What would actually wake you instantly, completely, is the wrong sound. A dog that does not stop. A voice where no voice should be. The word everyone in this century dreads more than any other word shouted in the street. And there is one more thing sharing the bed with you, and I've put off telling you about it long enough, and I am sorry. But this is Henry's history for sleep, and you knew what you signed up for. You are not alone in your shirt. Every person in this house, every person in this village, every person in this kingdom, from the ploughman in his straw to, and I'm not exaggerating, the king in his painted chamber, carries lice and shares the bed with fleas. This is not a mark of filth. Your mother is at war with them, and everyone knows it. The bedding goes out over the fence in the sun whenever there is sun. The straw gets changed, fleabane and wormwood gets strewn under the tick. Tansy hangs from the rafters, and none of it wins. It only holds the line. The flea is simply a member of the medieval household, as universal as the mouse, and the body learns to live with it the way it learns the smoke. In the warmth of first sleep you scratch without waking. A hand moves to a shin, a shoulder twitches. All over the village at this hour, 1,000 sleeping hands are moving in the same small automatic ways, and nobody surfaces. There is even a genre of medieval joke, whole comic poems about the flea as the boldest knight in England, since he alone bites the bishop. You have laughed at those jokes. Tonight, unconscious, you are the joke's setting. Time in your sleep is not measured. There is no clock. There is no clock in the village. There is arguably no clock, as you would recognise one, in the whole county. The great iron escapement clocks are just now, in exactly these decades, being born in cathedral towers far away, wonders that people travel to hear. Here, night-time is kept by other instruments. The candle in the church burns at a known rate. The stars wheel at a known rate, and any shepherd can read them. The moon rises when it rises, and the body itself keeps time, older than any of it, and it is the body that now, some 3 hours past the curfew, somewhere in the black trough of the night, begins, all through the village, in house after house, to rise, not to morning, nowhere near morning. This is the strangest true thing I will tell you tonight, so let me say it plainly. In the year 1300, and for centuries before, and for centuries after, human beings did not sleep through the night, and did not expect to, and did not want to. They slept in 2 shifts. The first sleep from soon after dark until around midnight, then an hour, sometimes 2, of quiet waking, and then the second sleep until dawn. This was not insomnia. This was not disorder. It was so ordinary that nobody bothered to explain it. They only mentioned it in passing, the way you would mention lunch. The court records of your era say it. After the first sleep he rose. The prayer books assume it, with special devotions written for the waking hour. The medical texts advise on it, telling you which side to lie on for each of the 2 sleeps. First, the right side, then after the watch, the left, to comfort digestion. In French, it is dorvel, the sleep-wake. In English, in time, they will simply call the interval the watch, or the watching hour, and when, centuries from now, in a world of gaslight and factory shifts, the 2 sleeps finally fuse into one, and the watching hour is forgotten, Something genuinely old will have gone out of the world, and almost no one will notice it leave. When you, in your century, snap awake at midnight for no reason, and lie there cursing your brain, you are not malfunctioning. You are remembering. So, you surface. It is not an alarm. It is a tide going out. The dead weight of first sleep thins. The room begins to exist again at the edges. Sounds reattach to their causes, and you lie for a while in the shallows, and then your eyes are open, and the darkness has changed. There is light in it now, thin, grey-silver, in blades and pinholes, at the shutter joints, at the eaves, one coin of it on the floor by the door. The moon is up. Even indoors, even through a sealed house, a moonlit night announces itself, and the room is no longer nothing. It is shapes, the black bulk of the settle, the hump of the great bed, the pale ghost of your shirt-sleeved arm on the coverlet. And the house is awake around you. This is the part I would give a great deal to let you actually hear, because no reconstruction, no film has ever bothered to show it. The sound of a medieval household in the watching hour, whispering. Your parents are talking. You cannot make out the words, and you're not meant to. It is the lowest register of the human voice, breath given just enough edge to carry a foot and no further. Your father's rumble, your mother's quicker replies, pauses, the creak of the bed frame as one of them shifts. This is when they talk. It is the only hour they have ever had. From waking to curfew, their life is work and children and neighbours and noise, and the watching hour is the private country of married people. Everyone knows it. The physicians even recommend it, writing with clinical frankness that the hour after the first sleep is the best of all hours for a man and his wife. The body rested, the supper settled, the children asleep. Whole generations of this village were begun in the watching hour. You yourself, in all statistical likelihood, were begun in the watching hour. You do not think about this. You've gotten very good at not thinking about this. Your grandmother is praying. You can hear the beads. She has a string of them, worn wooden beads the colour of chestnuts, and they click through her fingers one at a time with the small dry rhythm of a branch tapping a window, and under the clicking rides the whisper of the paternosters, the same 50 words in her old flat Latin that she does not understand and has never once needed to. The church long ago claimed this hour and gave it names. Matins, lords, the night office, and 8 miles away in the priory at this exact moment, monks are standing in a freezing choir chanting psalms into candlelight, doing professionally what your grandmother does here in sheepskins for free. She has watched at this hour her whole life. She says the veil is thin at night. She says the dead do not trouble those who pray. Her beads click. The ox breathes. The moon coin on the floor has moved an inch. Nick sleeps through all of it, of course, spine pressed to yours, furnace hot, dead to the world. 14 sleeps like 14, and you lie on your back in the middle of the watching hour, in the middle of your life, in the middle of the reign of King Edward, and you do what every human being does in this hour, what the whole breathing dark of Europe is doing right now in 100,000 villages from here to Jerusalem. You think. The thoughts of the watching hour have a particular texture, and the old people all say the same thing about them. They are truer than day thoughts and larger than dreams. The physicians say the humours settle in the first sleep, leaving the mind clear as skimmed broth. Your grandmother says God turns the world quietly at midnight so the souls on it can hear themselves. Whatever it is, you can feel it working. The day's small angers have gone flat. The plough, the mud, Nick losing the good goad in the ditch, all of it has shrunk to its right size. What is left is the big, slow furniture of your life, and in the watching hour you walk among it. You think about Cecily. Cecily is the Hayward's daughter, and she has red-brown hair that escapes its kerchief on the right side always, the same side always, and 3 weeks ago at the Harvest Ale, in the crush by the tapster's bench, she held your gaze for exactly one breath longer than a girl needs to, and you have been living off that breath like a bee off a hoard ever since. Her father holds twice the land your father holds. That is arithmetic, and marriage in Longcoat is arithmetic before it is anything else, and everybody involved will pretend otherwise and nobody will forget it. But her mother liked the fence work you did for them in June, and said so where people could hear, and your mother heard it the way a hawk hears a mouse. And there are negotiations that happen between mothers in this world, at wells and church doors, years before any young man is told his own future. Lying in the dark you assemble it. 3 more good harvests the Heriot paid off, the strip by the mill brook that the reeve hinted might come up for taking. It is possible. In the watching hour it is more than possible. It has a shape. It has her laugh in it. You allow yourself 1 full minute of the shape of it, which is as much as you allow yourself, because hope in large doses is how men get stupid. Then, because it is that kind of hour, the other thoughts come, the ones with weight. You think about your other brother, the one between you and Nick, who lived 9 days in the July you were 7, and was baptized fast, thank God. The midwife did it herself over the basin, so he is in heaven and not in the borderlands, and he is buried on the north side of the churchyard with his name, which was Osborne like your father, and your mother goes to him on his day every year and takes rosemary. Half the children born in this village do not see 10 years. That is not a horror to you the way it is a horror to me saying it. It is the weather of your world. But the watching hour knows where every grave is, and it visits them gently, the way your mother does, and moves on. You think about the famine years, because everyone over 25 thinks about the famine years. The 2 harvests that failed back to back when you were small, the summer it rained from Whitsun to Michaelmas, and the wheat rotted black where it stood, and bread went to triple, and the word moraine moved through the county like a spirit-killing sheep. You remember it mostly as textures, the gritty pea-flour bread with ground bark in it that made your gums bleed, your father coming in soaked at dark and not speaking. The day the pig was sold, you were lucky. Longcoat buried 4 that winter, all of them old or newborn, and other villages buried whole rows. And this is the fear under all fears in your world, the one that never fully sleeps, because there is no granary in England more than 18 months deep, and everything hangs on next year's weather, every year, forever. The barns are full tonight. That is why your chest loosens when you think of them. The ricks thatched and settled, the shed heavy with grain in the dark. And then that thought turns over and shows its other face, and your stomach remembers its stone. The barns are full, and there is a man in the fields who knows it. You lie still and take the fear out and look at it properly, because the watching hour is honest and there is no point lying to yourself in the dark. Here is what a stranger in the ditches means in the year 1300. He is not a colourful vagabond. If he is on the run from a manor, he is a serf out of his land and hungry. If he is out of the forest, he may be worse. An outlaw in the full legal sense, a man the courts have declared a wolf's head, meaning literally that, meaning he stands outside the law's protection the way a wolf does, meaning no lord's peace covers him, and no door in England is open to him. and a man with nothing left to lose by law is exactly as dangerous as he is desperate. Most such men want food and darkness and to be gone. Some want more. Every market day carries stories. This manor's grain shed emptied. That lonely house on the fossway broken at night. And the stories grow fat in the telling, but they grow from true bones. And the deep truth, the one your father grunted around at supper, is this. At night the village has no walls. There is no castle here, no gate, no garrison. There is a manor court that meets every 3 weeks, and a lord who is at his other manor 60 miles away, and a sheriff who is a rumour. When the sun goes down, the entire apparatus of law in this kingdom contracts to the same thing it has been since the world was made. Neighbours within shouting distance of each other, willing to get up. That is what the hue and cry is. You should know this term, because your whole night turns on it. The hue and cry is the law's oldest law, older than the Normans, older than the kings whose names anyone remembers. If a crime is seen, the seer must raise the hue, shout, blow the horn, out, out, thieves, and every able man who hears it is required on pain of fine to drop everything, arm himself, and come. The cry passes from house to house, village to village if need be, a fire of voices spreading through the dark, and God help the man it is spreading after. It is crude. It is the whole of your police, and the horn that raises it tonight in long coat is lying on the settle by your shoes, because tonight the watch is you. Which brings you to the sound you've been waiting for without admitting it. The sound that arrives now, small and clear across the frozen village. The church bell struck 4 times, unhurried. Not curfew. Simon the sexton sleeps in the room under the tower, and he too wakes at the watch hour like everyone alive, and when he wakes he strikes the hour of the night office for anyone who wants it, and for the watch. Midnight, near enough. The bell says, "Now." Your body objects. I want you to feel exactly how much it objects. You are lying in the one warm place in the visible universe, back to back with a furnace, under sheepskins that have taken 3 hours to fill with your own heat, and every joint in you has finally gone soft, and the ploughing is still in your shoulders like sand in a jar, and the air above the coverlet when you lift your chin into it is cold enough to feel like a hand on your face. Getting up now is not like your worst winter morning. It is like getting out of a warm bath onto ice, voluntarily, to go stand in a street for 5 hours because a piece of parchment in Winchester says your family owes the night an heir. You get up anyway. This is perhaps the most medieval single act of the whole night, and nobody will ever thank you for it. The unwitnessed, unpaid, freezing performance of duty, done because it is your turn, and everyone takes their turn, and that, not castles, is what actually holds this world together. The cold takes you the moment the sheepskins peel back, one whole body clench of it, and your breath goes loud. You find your clothes blind in order, by feel, hose, laces, tunic, second tunic, your father's old coat over both, the cloak over that, and your fingers do the lacing at your waist without you, 20 years of muscle knowing the knots. The moonblade from the shutter lies across your hands as they work, and they look like someone else's hands, silver and huge. Your mother's whisper crosses the dark, pitched to miss the sleepers and hit you. The jug is on the shelf, and there is bread in the cloth. Take the bread. Your father's voice under it, one word deep, horn, as if you would forget the horn. You take the ale jug and drink standing 3 long cold swallows, and take the bread, and take the horn on its cord over your shoulder, and take the bill hook. which is a hedging tool the way your father is merely a tenant, 4 pounds of curved forged edge on an ash handle, polished at the grip by 3 generations of palms. You lift the door bar as quietly as an oak bar can be lifted, which is not very. And behind you, your grandmother's beads pause, and her whisper reaches you at the threshold. The old formula, God before you, God behind you. And then you are through the door, and it is pulled to at your back, and you are standing alone in the street, in the moonlight, in the frost, at midnight, in the year 1300. And it is, and there is no other honest word for this, beautiful. You were braced for the dark, and instead the night has been minted in silver. The moon stands 3/4 full over the church tower, and the first hard frost of the year has put a skin of white crystal on every surface in the world. Every rut, every rooftop, every stalk of dead grass along the ditches, and the moonlight comes off all of it at once, so that the village is not dark at all. It is lit, floodlit, in a cold monochrome that has no name among the day's colours. The street runs away from you like a river of pewter. The thatched roofs are silver hills. 30 smoke threads stand almost straight up from 30 covered fires, ghost pale against the sky, the only proof that the village is alive. And the stars in the black between the moon and the rooftops are not the few dozen stars of your world. They are thousands, in tears, in smoke, the Milky Way an actual visible road overhead. The road, your people call it Watling Street of the Sky, and shepherds set their night watches by the wheel of it. The cold is total and clean. It has already found your face and made it a mask, already found the crack on your forefinger, already begun the long negotiation with your boots. Your breath pours out silver and hangs. Underfoot the frozen mud is loud, each step a crunch that carries 50 yards. And this is the first practical fact of the watch. On a frost night, nobody moves quietly, not you and not him, whoever he is, wherever in the silver fields he's lying. Hugh is waiting at the well, a black upright shape with a spear of moonlight along the staff he carries, stamping slowly, and his greeting is the entire greeting of night watchmen across all of human history. Cold enough for you. Hugh is the smith's man, 30, built like the anvil he serves, with a beard he keeps in a plait and hands so calloused that he once famously picked a coal off the forge floor bare-fingered to settle a wager and won a hen. You have known him your whole life, which in Longcoat is a tautology. You have known everyone your whole life. He hands you a lump of something from his pouch, and it turns out to be cheese, forge warmed once and now stone cold, and you eat it anyway, and the two of you stand at the well while he lays out the night like a foreman laying out a job. The watch of a village is not complicated, he says, and then he complicates it. You walk the street, end to end, church to mill, a 1/4 mile. You check the barred doors, the shed hasps, the fold hurdles. You listen more than you look, because ears work at night and eyes lie. You stop at the crossings and stand still long enough for the night to forget you, because a walking man hears his own feet, and a standing man hears the parish. Any stranger abroad after curfew, you challenge and hold till morning. That is the statute, no exceptions. If the Bishop of Lincoln himself comes up that lane at 2 in the morning, he can explain himself to the reeve at dawn like anybody else. And if it comes to trouble, real trouble, you do not play the hero. You wind the horn and you keep winding it, because the horn brings 30 men out of 30 doors, and no thief in England will stand against a parish in its shirts with billhooks. Nothing will happen, Hugh says, the way you say a thing you are deciding rather than predicting. Frost night, moon like a lantern, a man would be mad. Then he shoulders his staff toward the mill end and takes his half of the silence, and you take yours. And now you learn what the night watch actually is, which is not an adventure. It is a shift. It is the world's oldest boring job with the world's highest stakes. Hours of nothing carrying minutes of maybe. And it teaches you things about time that the day never will. You walk your beat. The street you have known since you could walk becomes, at this hour, a strange and formal country. Every house stands sealed and breathing. You pass the oldest house and smell the pig's blood still in the frost, iron and sweet, and hear through the wall the multiple soft snoring of a full family in first sleep's ruins. You pass Maud the widow's and hear her telling her beads, alone, the click, click coming faint through the shutter, every night the same, and it occurs to you for the first time in your life, tonight, at this hour, that Maud's watching hour has no one in it, that the hour that gives your parents their private country gives her an empty room, and that this is what widow means at 2 a.m, and you are briefly, uselessly, 19 about it and walk on. You check the church door out of custom, iron cold under your palm, bolted from within, Simon asleep under his bell. In the churchyard the frost has made every grass blade a white feather, and the yew stands black as a hole in the moonlight, and you do not look long at the north side, where the small graves are, not from fear exactly. The dead of Longcoat are not strangers. They are the majority. There are perhaps 140 souls asleep in the houses tonight, and some thousands asleep in that yard, layer under layer, back and back past names, past memory, to the first ancestor who cut the first field out of the wildwood, and your grandmother says they keep their own watch and mean well by the village. And standing here at their fence at midnight, you find you believe her completely, in a way you never quite manage at noon. You stand your still watches at the crossing, and this is where the night begins to talk. Stand long enough, breathing shallow, and the silence resolves into an orchestra playing very quietly. The brook beyond the mill, running thin under new ice at its edges, a continuous glassy syllable. An owl, the white one that hunts the church meadow, crossing twice on wings that make no sound at all, which is somehow louder than sound. Far off, 2 miles or 10, impossible to say, a dog-fox barks his flat, unearthly bark 3 times, and every dog in Longcoat answers once, and then thinks better of it. The frost itself works audibly, ticking in the thatch, creaking in the timbers, once cracking a branch somewhere up the lane with a report like a snapped board that stops your heart for the full space of 3 breaths. And your mind, walked and stood through the small hours, goes strange and wide. Everyone who has kept a night watch knows this, and nobody warns you. The border between thought and dream gets thin. You catch yourself mid-conversation with Cecily, having supplied both voices for some minutes. You review the ploughing, you count the strokes the curfew bell makes and realise you are counting nothing. The bell rang hours ago. Twice you snap fully alert with your heart going, certain you heard a footstep and stand fizzing in the frost, while the silence closes back over like water, and there is nothing, there was nothing, there continues aggressively to be nothing, until, somewhere in the black hour after the moon has crossed the tower and started down the western sky, there is something. It is not a footstep. It is the dogs. Roger's dog first, at the mill end, the far end, Hugh's end, and not barking. That is the thing your whole skin understands before your mind does, not the fox answering bark or the hedgehog in the garden bark, but the other sound, the low, continuous, chain-deep growl that a dog makes with its body flat and its lips off its teeth. The sound Roger described 2 mornings ago with his face the wrong colour. And then the dog next door to Roger's takes it up, and then a third. A relay of growls coming up the village toward you in the dark, house by house, like something being passed along a line of hands. Something is moving along the back of the village, behind the crofts, along the line of the folds and the sheds. Something the dogs can smell and cannot see, and it is moving toward the barns. Here is what fear does to a body at 3 in the morning in the year 1300. And it is exactly what it does to a body at 3 in the morning in your year, because this machinery is 100,000 years older than either of you. The heart arrives first, suddenly enormous, hitting the inside of the chest like a fist on a door. The hearing sharpens until it hurts, until you can hear the blood itself, a high seashell whine. The hands go cold and certain at the same time, and you find the billhook has already changed position in your grip without consulting you. Edge forward, and your thumb has found the flat of the blade the way it does before hedge work. And time goes granular. Each second arrives separately and must be gotten through. You do not wind the horn. Understand why, because the why is the whole institution. The horn is not a scream, the horn is an oath. Wind it, and 30 men come out of warm beds into killing frost with tools in their hands, and if what they find is a badger in the Aldith cabbages, you are the boy who cried the hew, and there are fines for that. Actual fines assessed at the manor court, raising the hew without cause, and worse than the fine is the face of every man at church on Sunday. The hue and cry works only because it is never wasted. So the law of the watch is, eyes first, horn second. You have to go and look. You go and look. You cut between Maud's house and the next, down the narrow gap where the eaves almost touch, and the frost is not reached, and the mud is still soft, silent, sucking faintly at your soles, and you come out behind the crofts on the back lane, where the gardens and pig pens and folds and sheds run in a ragged line between the houses and the open fields, and you press yourself against the cold daub of Maud's gable, and you stop your breath, and you listen down the lane. The growling has stopped. That is worse. The dogs have gone silent altogether, the way dogs do when the thing is close enough that silence seems wiser, and the back lane lies in the moon shadow of the houses, a corridor of dark against the silver fields beyond, and you stand in that dark with your heart filling your whole torso, and you hear it. Scrape, pause, scrape, metal on wood, small, patient, rhythmic. 40 yards down, where the Reeve's great grain shed stands at the end of his croft. The best-filled shed in the village, the one with the iron hasp. Someone is working at the hasp. Someone who has done this before, who works in strokes and stops, letting the night swallow each sound before making the next. The stranger is not in the fields any more. The stranger is here, and he is 40 yards away, and you are 19 years old, and the horn is on its cord against your hip, and this exact moment standing pressed to a frozen wall, with your breath held, is the moment the whole apparatus of statute and duty and your father's grunt at supper has been aiming you at all your life. You fill your chest and you step out from the wall and you shout, and your voice comes out both higher and louder than you have ever heard it, and the words are the oldest words there are, out thieves, and in the same motion you set the horn to your lips and you wind it, and the sound the horn makes in the frozen dark is not music. It is a tearing, a huge raw bawl that goes up out of the village like the village itself crying out, and everything happens at once. The shape at the shed door comes upright and turns, and for one photographic instant the moon over the roofline catches him. Big, hooded, a sack empty in one hand and something short and iron in the other. A face you cannot see with eyes you can feel. And then he's gone. Not up the lane toward Hugh, not toward you, but straight back, over the fold hurdles in one heave of his body, out into the open silver of the fields, running. And behind you, the village detonates. You've never seen the hue and cry from inside before, and I need you to see it, because there is nothing in your world like it. There are no sirens coming from elsewhere, no professionals inbound. The response is the village. The village is the response, and it comes out of its own walls in under a minute. Door bars crash back all down the street. Dogs go from silence to full cry in a single beat, every dog at once, a solid wall of sound. Men are in the street in shirts and hoods and unlaced boots with billhooks, flails, a boar spear, the smith with his forge hammer, your own father, ruined knees and all, in the doorway with the hearth axe, roaring your name as a question, and you're shouting back here. Hole, thief, gone east over the folds, and the horn keeps passing its message outward, because now Hugh is winding his from the mill end, and faint. A minute later, thin with distance, you hear a third horn answer from Stanton, the next village 2 miles east, picking up the cry as the law requires, throwing the alarm on across the sleeping country like a beacon made of sound. By the time the moon sets, every village on this side of the 100 will know that Long Coat raised the hue in the night. The man running through the frost is running into a countryside that is waking up ahead of him in a spreading ring. The pursuit itself is short, confused, freezing and glorious. A dozen of you go over the hurdles and out into the fields, spread in a line the way you drive hares at harvest. Torches guttering orange against all that silver. Breath in clouds, the frozen plough ridges catching feet. 2 men down and up and swearing. The dogs casting ahead in great excited loops. You find his line easily. The frost betrays everything. A dark scrawl of broken white crystal running dead straight east across the fallow. The stride of a big man flat out. You follow it to the brook, and at the brook it ends, in a smash of broken ice edge and churned mud, where he went through the water to kill his scent and his trail both. And on the far bank the rising ground is old pasture, frost-hard, and holds no print, and beyond it, a black line against the stars, the wildwood begins, and no man of long coat is going into the wildwood at night, behind a cornered outlaw, and every one of you knows it, and the dogs know it, running the bank in frustrated figures, and it is over. He got nothing. The Reeves hasp held, bent but held, the shed unbreached, the sack he dropped in the fold lies empty. Nothing taken, no one bloodied. In the morning the Reeve will send word to the bailiff, and the trail will be shown, and the men of the tithing will make their report, and in 3 weeks at the Manor Court it will be entered on the roll in a clerk's brown ink, a line of Latin about an unknown malefactor by night, and that roll, that actual skin of parchment, may well be lying in an English archive at this moment 7 centuries later, with this exact night on it, waiting for a graduate student. But that is the morning's business. What happens now in the field, in the small hours, is the part no roll will record, and it is my favourite part. The men stand down, and standing down, in the middle of a frozen field at 4 in the morning, having all survived a great excitement together, the men of Long Coat do the most human thing there is. They begin, quietly at first, to enjoy themselves. Somebody says that Aldith came out with no boots at all, and everyone looks, and Aldith is indeed standing in the frost in his bare feet with a flail, only now noticing, and the laughter starts low and helpless, and spreads exactly the way the growling spread, house by house of them, and someone else swears the smith was ready to throw the hammer overhand at 40 yards, and the smith says he was, and mimes it, and there in the torchlight, in the steam of their own breath, in their shirts and their unlaced boots, the entire adult male population of Longcoat stands around in a frozen field at 4 in the morning laughing like boys. Your father's hand arrives on your shoulder from behind and stays there, heavy, and says nothing whatsoever, and it is, you understand at once, and will still understand at 80, the most complete thing he has ever said to you. And Hugh, plaited beard full of frost, delivers the verdict of the watch, loud enough for the parish. The lad saw him, cried him, and wound the horn proper, and never mind the rest. And from a dozen freezing men comes the low amused rumble that is, in the currency of this village, a triumph. You did your turn, the turn held. That tonight is the whole of the law and the whole of the news, and it is enough. The village takes a long time to go back down. Excitement is a fire too, and it has to be banked like any other. The men drift back over the hurdles in 2s and 3s, still talking, voices dropping as the houses close around them again. Doors thud, bars fall. One by one the dogs run out of things to say. Somebody's baby, woken by all of it, cries thinly through a wall for a while, and is walked and hushed by a mother whose shadow you can hear crossing and recrossing a floor. The reeve, who's been standing at his shed door holding a lantern and his own bent hasp with the expression of a man composing Latin, tells you and Hugh to finish the watch, and that there will be words said about tonight at the court, and from the reeve, words said is high praise. And Hugh mouths it at you behind the man's back, words said. For the rest of the watch it will be your title, and then it is just the two of you again, and the street, and the frost, and the last of the night. But the night has changed its nature. Fear spent is fear spent, and what fills the space where it was is something loose and warm and slightly ridiculous. The feeling soldiers know and midwives know, and everyone who has ever been up all the way through a night knows, that lightness of the far side of 3 o'clock, when the body has given up asking for sleep and started issuing giddiness instead. Hugh stops fighting his half of the beat, and the two of you walk it together, against all doctrine, and he talks, because Hugh at 4 in the morning talks. He tells you about the great watch of his own 19th year, the famine winter, when it was not one stranger in the fields, but bands of them, whole families of the starving moving down the roads from the ruined north, and the watch stood double all that season, and what he remembers is not fear, but shame, turning people away, hollow-cheeked children at the edge of the torchlight, the village holding its bread behind its bars because there was not enough for its own, and the priest saying God would weigh the winter and not the men, and Hugh saying to you now flatly into the frost that he has never been sure the priest had that right. It is the sort of thing that can only be said at this hour. You will never hear Hugh say anything like it in daylight, not in 30 years, and he never mentions it again. He tells you cheerfuller things too, that the second sleep you're missing tonight is the sweet one, the dream one, and that the old men say the dreams of the second sleep are the true dreams, sent, while first sleep dreams are only the day settling like dregs. That his wife talks in her second sleep in complete courteous sentences and once thanked an invisible bishop. That a watchman's proper business in the dead hour is exactly this, keeping the other watchmen awake, and that the fine old word for two men doing what you are doing right now, talking the low fire of the night along until dawn, is to waken the wake. And he shows you the clock. Not a clock. The sky. He stops you at the crossing, tips his beard up at the enormous wheeling silver of it, and gives you the shepherd's lesson your father never had time for. How the plough, which never sets, swings around the nail star like the hand of God's own dial, a full circle in a day and a night, and how a man who marks where it stood at curfew can read the hours off it all night long as sure as any abbey candle. He shows you where it stood when the watch began, and where it stands now, swung a third of its circle, and you stand at the frozen crossroads of your ancestral village reading the time off the turning universe, and it says, not long now. It says, the night is old. It says, in the same breath, what your grandmother's beads say, and the monk's psalms say, and the death watch beetle says. Everything in your world says it all night in every register. The night passes, watch, and it passes. The last hour is the coldest. This is a law of nature that every watchman, every fisherman, every mother sitting up with a sick child has known forever. The deepest cold comes not at midnight, but at the very end, in the hour before light, when the earth has been spending its heat since sundown, and has nothing left. The frost thickens visibly on your cloak, on Hugh's beard, on the well rope, furring everything, and your feet have passed through pain into diplomatic silence, and the bread in your pouch is frozen and you eat it anyway, breaking it against your knee, and the two of you stamp and pace and waken the wake, and the moon goes down orange and swollen into the western trees like a second, colder sunset. And then you smell it before you see it. Morning, in the year 1300, arrives first as a smell, smoke-changing. All night the 30 banked fires have breathed their thin ghost threads, and now, in house after house, the curfew domes are being lifted, embers breathed back to flame, fresh wood laid on, and the smoke over the village turns from ghost to fire smell, resinous and live, 30 hearths resurrecting in the dark, and it is the homeliest smell in the whole world. It is the smell of the day being relit from the seed of the day before. Then sound. A cock first, of course, from the Reeves Croft, insufferable and correct. Then every cock in the parish in ragged cannon. The clank of the smithy shutter, a well bucket, a child's voice, one high question through a wall. Simon's bell, small and clear, ringing the hour before dawn for the priest's first office. The ox, your own ox, lowing once through your own wall as your own mother, you can hear her, scolds him affectionately by name. Then, at last, light. It does not break, whatever the poets say. It leaks. The black in the east goes grey. The grey goes the colour of ash. The ash goes faintly green. Then one bar of dull furnace red lies down along the horizon under the last stars, and the frost catches it, and the whole silver world you've been standing guard over all night turns, field by field, rose and gold, and the church tower comes back out of silhouette and has stone again, and faces have faces again, and Hugh's plaited beard is grey with rheum and his eyes are red, and he looks like 10 miles of bad road and tells you that you look worse, and the watch of the eve of Saints Simon and Jude is over. You hand the night back to the day. There is even a small ceremony to it, watchman's custom. Hugh knocks at the Reeves' door, and the Reeve, already up, already important, takes the horn and the report. All's well, one alarm, Hugh raised, nothing taken, and says that the two of you may lie until terse with no word said, which is the reeve's way of saying you have earned your second sleep at last. Take it with the village's blessing. And so you go home through the waking street, aching, frozen, 19, minorly famous, and the door of your father's house opens before you can touch it, because your mother has been listening for your step, as she has all night, between her sleeps, the way mothers keep a watch inside the watch, and the warmth and the smell of the relit fire and the barley pot come out over the threshold and take you in. What follows is the sweetest hour of your entire 19 years, and it is only barley porridge and a straw bed, and I want to slow all the way down for it, because this is the payoff of the whole night, yours and mine. Your mother sits you on the settle by the fire, the real fire now, tall and loud and orange, and the heat of it lands on your frozen front like a physical weight, and your face, which stopped reporting for duty hours ago, comes back online pin by pin, cheeks first, then nose, then the rims of your ears, each one a small country reconnecting, stinging, glorious. She puts the bowl in your hands, barley boiled in the ox's own milk, with a lump of butter turning in the middle of it like a drowned sun, and honey, actual honey, from the crock that comes out for saints' days and lambing, and apparently sons who wound the horn, and the first spoonful goes down through you like a lit wick. You can track its whole journey, throat, chest, stomach, a warm map of yourself drawn from the inside. Alice orbits you, incandescent, demanding the thief told again. Bigger, and you give her the moon flash of him, and the leap over the hurdles, and she runs the leap herself across the floor twice to understand it. Nick, who slept through the horn, through the dogs, through 30 men, and the end of the world, through everything, maintains with a 14-year-old's total conviction that he heard all of it and chose not to come, and is mocked and takes it. Your grandmother says God was thanked at the right hour, by which she means she was awake and praying when the horn went, which is certainly true, and adds, peeling the moment like an apple, that her own father wound that same horn, that horn on that peg, the winter the Scots war took the levy north, and for a moment the horn on the peg has 60 years of hands on it, and everyone looks at it and no one says anything, and then your father, headed out to the plough you're excused from, stops in the doorway with the light behind him, and jerks his chin at the pallet in the corner, and issues the fullest speech he will make this month. Go down, boy. You've watched enough. You go down. Off the boots, toes to the door, off the outer wool, cold stiff, smelling of frost and horn breath and torch smoke, down onto the straw, which has kept a ghost of Nick's warmth under the wool and the sheepskins, and your mother, unasked, wraps a stone from the hearth's edge in a cloth and puts it in at your feet, and the heat of it blooms up your shins, and you make a sound you would not have made in company. And here is the strange sweet inversion that crowns the night. You're lying down to sleep in the morning, in the noise, in the light. The shutters are open, the air pours in, the housework surround you, the fire snapping, your mother's knife on the board going through onions with that steady wet cadence, Alice singing 3 lines of a carol over and over because she only knows 3 lines. The ox being led out with this enormous clatter, hens arriving indoors illegally and being expelled, the street beyond the wall filling with wheels and greetings and somebody's hammer. And none of it, not one bit of it, holds you back, because you learned something out there in the frost that all the day sleepers of history know. Every watchman and shepherd and monk stumbling from matins, every mother of a newborn, every soul who has ever done their turn in the dark so that others could lie easy. There is no bed so deep as the one you've earned by keeping someone else's sleep. The sounds begin to detach from their meanings. The knife cadence becomes rain. Alice's 3 lines become a longer song that no one wrote. The last thing that is really and truly a thought is Cecily's kerchief coming loose on the right side, the same side always, and then the straw takes you, and the house holds you, and the village holds the house, and the daylight itself stands over you like a guard, and you go down into the second sleep at last, hours late and utterly whole, and the second sleep does what the old men promised. It gives you the true dreams. You dream in the logic of that age, which is to say you dream importantly, because in 1300 a dream is not static from a tired brain. A dream is a text, and everyone from the ploughman to the pope agrees it must be read. There are books that sort them, the scholars counting out the kinds on their fingers, the empty dream that is only supper arguing with the humours, the mirror dream that is only the day returning, and then the higher kinds, the visio, the oraculum, the dream that arrives, the dream with mail to deliver. Your grandmother keeps the village's working version of this entire science in her head, no Latin required. Dream of teeth, a death among kin, dream of clear water, gain, dream of the dead. Listen to what they carry and give it to the priest in the morning. Half the visions that steer this century, that send men to Compostela and Jerusalem, that cite abbeys and end feuds, arrive at exactly this hour, in exactly this sleep, this second sleep, the morning sleep, when the body lies light and the door, everyone believes, stands ajar. Your dream is humbler than an abbey and better. You dream the fields in high summer. That is all. The famine fear of the watching hour has gone into the dream and been answered there, the way second sleep dreams answer. The strips all standing in wheat to your chest, gold to the wood's edge, the whole parish in the light binding sheaves, your father's knees not ruined, your small brother Osborne there too, 9 days old and somehow also 9 years old, the way the dead are permitted to be in dreams, laughing on the top of the rick, and Cecily beside you binding, kerchief loose on the right side, and no one in the dream finds any of this remarkable, because it is not a wish, it is a report, it is the village telling you through the licensed channel what all the guarding and the ploughing and the horn on the peg are for. You will remember this dream at odd hours for the rest of your life. You will tell no one except, in about 11 years, her. Around you, while you sleep, the morning becomes midday. This is the part of the story where I would normally follow the working day, but we are doing the night's ledger tonight, so let the day pass at its own pace out there, wheels and hammers and the plough going up and down the North Strip, and let me stay here by the pallet a moment and tell you quietly, so as not to wake him, what he doesn't know about the thing he just did. He does not know that the 2 sleeps have names, or that they will ever need names because you only name a thing when it starts to disappear. He does not know that the watching hour, the whispered hour, the beads and bodies hour, the hour that made him, is a habit of the species and not a fact of the universe. He does not know that it will survive him by 400 years and then die within 2 generations, put to death by cheap light, by lamps and then gas, and then the clean, pitiless electric noon that your sentry switches on at midnight without thinking, until the very memory of the second sleep is so lost that when his descendants wake, as he woke, in the deep of the night, as bodies still sometimes insist on doing, they will lie there in the dark believing themselves broken, and will give the old watching hour a medical name, and will take medicine for it. He knows none of that. He knows the straw under his cheek and the stone cooling at his feet, and the knife rain of his mother's cooking. And honestly, of the two of you tonight, he is not the one I feel sorry for. And while Wat sleeps his earned second sleep in a village in the middle of England, let the roof of the story lift away for a while, gently, the way it can at this hour, and let me show you the rest of it. Because this same night, this exact frost-bright October night in the year 1300, is being slept in 10,000 different ways across Christendom, and every one of them will surprise you, and none of them looks like yours. 2 days' ride south of Longcoat there is a castle, and you probably imagine the lord of a castle sleeping in something like privacy, in something like comfort. Half right. Comfort, yes, by the standards of the age. The great bed of the solar is the single most expensive object in the household after the plate. A carved frame you climb into by a step. A mattress of actual feathers over a mattress of straw over the ropes. Sheets of linen so fine they are listed in the inventory by name. Curtains hung all around on rails. Heavy wool curtains, and this is the detail to hold on to because the curtains are not decoration. The curtains are the bedroom. Draw them, and the bed becomes a small warm room inside the large freezing one, a tent of trapped body heat. Because the solar's fireplace, that great arched showpiece, warms the 6 feet in front of it, and ceremonially gestures at the rest. Privacy? No. The lord and lady sleep curtained, but the chamber around them sleeps full. A body servant on a truckle bed that rolls out from under the great bed like a drawer, a couple of pages on pallets by the door, perhaps a favoured hound, and beyond the door the entire remaining household, and I mean entire, sleeps in the great hall, together, on benches and bags and rushes, 40 people in one smoky room sorted by rank from the fire outward, so that in a castle your distance from the flames at midnight is an exact map of your importance by day, and everyone can read the map, because everyone is lying on it. And through the castle night, unlike the village night, someone is always officially awake. The watch on the wall changes at hours called by name. A cresset lamp, a stone bowl of burning fat, gutters all night at the stair turn, the one permanent flame in the darkness, a luxury precisely because someone must be paid to mind it. The porter dozes armed in his niche by the gate. Great households are ships. They run a night watch below decks even at anchor. 8 miles from Wat's pallet at the Priory, the night is not being endured at all. It is being worked. Monks are the night's professionals. The whole engineered day of the rule pivots on rising in the black middle of the night, every night, all life long, for the office of matins, and consider what that means in practice this particular night. A novice of 16, in an unheated dormitory where the brothers sleep clothed in their habits, in rows, in beds separated by low partitions, a lamp burning at either end because the rule requires light in the dorm all night, is shaken awake in the coldest hour by the circuiter, the brother whose duty is precisely to wake the others, and he rises without a word because words are forbidden now, and files down the night stair, the special staircase built into the Abbey's very architecture for this one nightly journey, directly from dormitory into church, and stands in a choir stall in air cold enough to show his breath, and sings. Psalms by heart in the dark, an hour and more of them, the 2 sides of the choir tossing the verses back and forth like slow bells, while one candle marks the time by burning, and the whole rest of the kingdom sleeps its first sleep around them. They do this so that someone is praying while everyone sleeps. That is the theory of the entire institution, stated plainly in their own documents. The night has to be held up, like a roof, and they are the pillars. Whether or not you believe what they believed, understand that on this night in 1300 there are thousands of them at it, across every dark mile of Europe, standing in freezing choirs singing the world through till morning, the largest night shift on earth. In the towns the night is law-shaped and suspicious. A town after curfew is a locked box, gates barred at the wall, chains hung across the street mouths at dusk, actual iron chains at hip height to stop horsemen, and the watch patrols with lanterns and the authority to arrest any night walker. That is the legal term. Night walker. A person abroad after curfew without good cause, and being one is an offence in itself. Honest business shuts at dark by regulation. No work by candle in most trades, partly for fire, partly because the guilds hold. Charmingly, that work done in bad light is bad work and shames the craft. So the town sleeps early, packed into its timber floors, journeymen in the shop, apprentices under the counter, servants in the kitchen, warmth. Whole households layered into buildings like cargo, while the watch cries the hours through the streets. And in the inns, strangers who met at supper sleep 3 and 4 to a bed, fully customary, bed sharing with unknown travellers being as unremarkable as sharing a train compartment will one day be, with its own unwritten etiquette that every traveller knows. Keep to your edge, no hogging the coverlet, boots off, and the great question you may put to a bedfellow, as the manuals of polite conversation will actually record, is whether he snores. On the roads between, the night belongs to a scattered nation of the bedless. Shepherds folded with the flocks under turned hurdles, drovers dozing against warm cattle, carters under carts, pilgrims in the straw of monastery guest barns, and charcoal burners alone in the deep woods, who must tend a smouldering clamp for days on end, and so have taught themselves the strangest sleep of all, dozing sitting upright on a one-legged stool, so that if true sleep takes them the stool tips, and they wake, and the fire is checked, and out beyond every shore on the herring boats and the wine ships riding at anchor in the dark, the watch changes by sand glass, 4 hours on and 4 off, and a boy turns the glass and strikes a small bell, and men roll wrapped in sail canvas between the cargo, and that sea rhythm of broken sleep, watch on watch, will still be run on iron ships 700 years from now. One of the only medieval sleeps to survive into your world intact. King, monk, apprentice, shepherd, thief. Curtained, choir-bound, countered, folded, hunted, and under all the differences the same 3 companions in every single bed in Christendom, the dark, the cold, and each other. That last one most of all. Across the entire medieval world, from the great hall to the straw, sleep is a thing done together, in heaps, within reach and earshot. And the truly frightening bed, the bed of exile and penance and ghost stories, the bed nobody wants, is the empty room, the single sleeper, the one thing your own sentry will spend a fortune to achieve. Meanwhile, back in Longcoat, the light in the doorway has gone from morning to afternoon, and on his pallet by the wall, Wat surfaces slowly out of the goldfield of his dream, and the village walks in from all its edges towards supper, and the whole cycle sets itself again. Evening, bell, dark, sleep, watch, sleep, dawn, the great wheel that has turned every night since the wildwood was cleared and will turn tonight again. Because here is the thing about a night. It is never only one night. Let the weeks turn now, the way they turn, and watch how the sleep of Longcoat changes with the year, because a medieval night is a season-shaped thing, and Wat will sleep 4 different countries before Saints Simon and Jude come round again. Winter deepens first, and winter sleep is the long sleep, the great hibernation of the north. In December the dark runs 16 hours out of the 24, and no rushlight budget on earth can furnish 16 hours, so the village simply gives most of them back to the bed. People lie down not long after the early dusk and do not finally rise until the late dawn, 12 hours and more in the straw, first sleep, watch, second sleep, and sometimes, in the dead heart of January, a third drowse on the end like a knot in a rope. The bed becomes the living room. Families talk in bed, mend harness by feel in bed, tell the long stories in bed, the ones that only come out in the dark months, your grandmother unwinding the tale of the famine, or the old king, or the fair dead lady in the barrow on the down, in nightly instalments, her voice and the fire tick and the frost busy in the thatch, and Watt at 19 would not admit on the rack how much he still loves the instalments. On the bitterest nights the sheep come right in among the people, and being the child whose turn it is to sleep against the oldest ewe is a privilege that is fought over, because a ewe is a hot water bottle that breathes, and when snow lies deep and the paths close, the village barely wakes at all for days, dozing, tending fires, eating little because larders must last, half asleep at noon, and the manor rolls themselves go quiet in deep winter, as if the law were hibernating too. Then spring, and spring sleep is the broken sleep, the working night. Lambing tears the nights open first, the ewes choosing, as ewes always choose, the blackest, wettest hour to go into trouble, and Wat spends whole nights of March in the fold under a hurdle and canvas lean-to, dozing in 10-minute scraps between rounds, hands slick and freezing, a horn lantern turning the rain to gold thread, learning the shepherd's skill of sleeping instantly, anywhere, in armour of wet wool, and waking complete at one wrong sound from the fold. Then the spring ploughing, days that start before light, and the watching hour shrinks in the short nights, arriving later, leaving sooner, until at midsummer it nearly closes up altogether. But a summer sleep is the short sleep, the thin sleep, and nobody sings songs about how hard it is, but it is hard. At midsummer the dark lasts barely 6 hours, and the work fills every lit one. Men come in from the hay almost too tired to eat, and lie down at last light with their muscles ringing, and the house is close and warm now, the fire small, the fleas at their annual festival, and the dawn comes at 4 and drags everyone up by the hair. In harvest itself even the law lets go of the night. The august moon, the great amber harvest moon, rises so bright that the village reaps by it, whole families out in the stubble at midnight saving the wheat before a weather change, and those nights, dangerous and golden and half drunk with fatigue and ale carried out to the strips, are the nights everyone remembers at 80, the nights the whole parish stayed up together and the year was one. And then the wheel comes round, the barns fill, the beds are restuffed fat with the new straw. The first frost puts its knife back in the air, and it is autumn again, and the long sleeps return like geese. And one October evening, a year to the day since our night, Simon rings the curfew 40 times, and in the house of Osborne the fire goes under its dome, and things are the same and not the same. The watch roster has turned through every house and come back around. And this year, when the turn falls to Osborne's house, nobody even discusses it. The horn comes off the peg and goes to Wat, as if it had his name burned in it. And this year, there is a boy walking the other half of the street, the wheelwright's second son, 16 and rigid, with the fear of doing it wrong. And Wat hears himself at the well in the frost, saying the words Hugh said, ears before eyes, stand still, and let the night forget you. Nothing will happen. And hears in his own voice exactly how much Hugh knew that night, and exactly what he was doing with all that talk, and has to turn his face away toward the church tower for a moment. The wall between the men who are looked after and the men who do the looking after is 1 night thick, and he has passed through it, and there is no passing back. The stranger was taken in November, as it happens 200 miles north, or he wasn't, or he froze in the wildwood, or he reached the coast and shipped for Flanders and died old. The village never learns and stops asking and keeps the story, which grows a knife in the man's hand within a year and a scar on his face within 5. And Watt, who alone saw him in the moon flash for that one photographic instant, big, hooded, gone, finds that even his own memory is quietly editing and lets it. Every village runs on stories the way it runs on grain, and the Night of the Horn is now part of Longcoat's winter store, told in bed in the dark months with Watt in it, and it will still be told, unrecognisably, when Watt is the grandmother figure by the fire, and that is not a corruption of the truth. That is what a village is. And the mother's negotiations at the well ripened the way such things ripen, and the strip by the mill brook did come up for taking, and there was a fence mended at the Haywoods that did not strictly need mending, and on a Sunday in the octave of Easter at the church door where marriages are made in this world, in front of the whole parish with the priest presiding and the spring mud shining, What son of Osborne took Cecily the Haywood's daughter, with a ring of silver that cost him exactly 1 year of very careful living, and her kerchief came loose on the right side during the blessing, the same side always, and he considered it an omen of the highest order, and I am not going to tell you he was wrong. Which means that on this second eve of St. Simon and Jude, when the watchers walked and handed back at dawn, Wat does not go home to the pallet and Nick's kicking. He goes home to a house of his own, 1 bay, new thatch pale as bread, rent entered on the roll in brown ink, a borrowed fire under a new clay dome, and a bed, their bed, the first thing built for the marriage, straw tick fat with this harvest straw, and Cecily asleep in it with her hair unpinned, who stirs when the cold comes in with him and says, not really waking, the immemorial words of every watchman's wife, "You're frozen, come here," and pulls the sheepskins open, and the warmth of another person receives him like the shore, and that, all of that, the horn and the frost and the ring and the fat new tick, is what 1 turn of the year does to 1 sleeper in 1 village, in a world of 100,000 villages, in a century of turning years. Hold it in your hand a moment. Now let it go, and come back to the dark with me, because it is time to finish the way we began, lying down with our eyes closed, listening. It is a night in the following winter, an ordinary one, no thief in it, no horn, and I choose it deliberately, because the extraordinary nights are easy to tell, and the ordinary ones are the actual substance of a life, and this is the substance. Wat and Cecily going to bed in their own house in December of the year 1301, and every small thing they do is a piece of the vast unwritten manual of medieval sleep, the one nobody ever set down in full because everybody already knew it, and which I have been secretly assembling for you all night. So watch closely one last time, because this is the whole craft of it, the 10,000 years of accumulated human night knowledge, performed in 1 room by 2 tired people in about a quarter of an hour. Cecily banks the fire, because it is her hearth now and her office, raking the embers with the short iron rake her mother gave her, gathering them into the tight mound, and before the dome goes down she does the thing her mother did, and her mother's mother. She reads the embers for a moment, the way you read the sky, because a hearth has weather too, and this one is settling well. Dense orange under grey fur, a fire that will keep. Down goes the dome with its soft ceramic bite into the ash. Then the small physic of the night, the medicine cabinet of 1301. She sets the night jug of small ale on the shelf, and beside it, because Wat's chest has been catching in the cold, a cup of the evening posset, hot milk curdled with ale and sweetened with a scrape of the honey, which every physician from here to Salerno would approve, warm and moist to meet the night's cold and dry, they would say, and which works, in so far as it works, for the sound reason that it is warm milk and honey, and someone made it for you. The strewing herbs get their winter renewal this week, and the house smells of it, meadow-sweet and ladies' bedstraw dried from July, crushed underfoot into a ghost of hay and almonds, and in the bed itself, under the tick, wormwood against the fleas and a sprig of dried fennel at the head, which her grandmother swore keeps ill dreams off, and which cost nothing, and so is sworn by. Over the bedhead, tied to the wattle, a cross of blessed candle wax from Candlemas, and a sprig of birch, and if the priest were asked he would carefully distinguish which of these is religion and which is custom, and nobody asks him, because in the dark at bed level no such border has ever existed. The night has always been where the church's writ runs thinnest, and the older world comes closest to the wall, and every soul in long coat, the priest included, sleeps behind both kinds of guard and sees no contradiction worth losing sleep over. Shoes toes to the door, both pairs, bar in its brackets, shutters pinned. The knife goes where a knife goes at night in a lonelyish house at the end of the village, within reach and out of dream's way, on the shelf, not under the pillow, because her mother said a blade under the head cuts your sleep, and whether that is spirits or just good sense about rolling onto knives, it is obeyed. Then the last light, a rushlight burned down to 2 finger widths, and by it the prayers, said together now, which is new to him, and he likes it more than he has found a way to say. Her voice, and his unevenly braided through the paternoster, and her addition at the end, the old night blessing of her family as his grandmother's was of his. 4 corners to my bed, 4 angels round my head, 1 to watch and 1 to pray, and 2 to bear my soul away. Words that children will still be taught in English beds 700 years from now by mothers with no idea they are reciting the Middle Ages. And then she pinches the light, not blowing it. She has never once been afraid of the clip, and the dark comes down over the 2 of them like the dome over the coals, and then the settling, which no manual records and everybody knows, the negotiation of the single warm territory, the cold linen annexed inch by inch, the finding of the fit, her back to his chest, his knees behind her knees, the arm that goes under the neck and the arm that goes over, her feet, which are always cold, always, delivered without ceremony onto his shins, his hiss, her entirely unrepentant hum, and then stillness, and the house begins its old talk around the new household, wind at the eaves, tick of frost, the little fire dreaming under its clay, and somewhere down the street a dog says one word and thinks better of it. They wake at the watching hour, of course. They always will, all their lives, every night. The tide going out and coming in, and this is a winter watching hour with nothing in it that has to be done, the very finest kind, an hour of clear black leisure in the middle of a 16-hour night. He hears her surface, the change in her breath, the small stretch. The jug is passed and drunk from in turns, blind, the cold ale bright in the dark. Her voice arrives near his ear, low, day-sized things first, the ewe that limps, whether the meal will last to Lent, then the middle-sized things, her father's cough, the strip by the brook and what it could carry in beans, and then, because it is the watching hour and the watching hour is honest, the great thing said into the dark where it is easiest, that she has missed her time twice now, and Mag, the midwife, smiled at her at the well on Tuesday in a particular way, and the dark takes his silence and holds it up to her like a lamp, and then his laugh comes out of him in a single breath he did not authorize, and the whole night, the frost, the parish, the sleeping shire, the wheeling plough above the roof, goes on exactly as before, while everything changes shape around two people lying still in a straw bed, which is where, in this century, nearly all the news that ever mattered has always been broken. They say her beads together, and it is not routine this time, and then back down, her breathing going long first, then his, into the second sleep, the sweet one, the scent one, and if there is any justice in the economy of dreams, and the old men insist there is, then somewhere in that morning sleep a goldfield is standing again to the wood's edge, fuller than before, with one more small figure in it, up on the rick, laughing. Stay in the room one more moment. Their two sleeps braid and separate and braid. The ember seam glows under the dome. The frost writes on the thatch. And understand, finally, the sum of everything you have watched tonight. That sleep, in this world, is not a private absence, not 8 blank hours to be optimized. It is a made thing. It is banked like a fire and kept like a watch and shared like bread. It has architecture, the dome and the bar and the toes to the door. It has liturgy, the beads and the 4 angels. It has a broken shape with the lit room of quiet in the middle, and it has walls around it made entirely of other people, their breath, their backs, their turns on the roster, their willingness to stand in the frost, so that the street full of strangers who are not strangers can lie down behind thin walls in total darkness, in a lawless world, and be unafraid. That is the invention, not the mattress, the unafraid part. It took the whole village, every night, to manufacture one night of safe sleep, and they manufactured it night after night after night for 1,000 years, and it worked. And now the fire is low, and the hour is late where you are too, and it is time to do what we came to do. So come back one last time to the first house, the long house of Osborne, on the night we began with, the eve of Saints Simon and Jude in the year 1300, in the hour after the hue was raised and answered, and laughed off in a frozen field, in the hour when the whole village has gone back down into the dark. Come stand in the middle of that one room with me, where you cannot be seen, because the darkness is total again, and just listen. 7 people breathing, the slow ones and the quick ones and the whistling one, the ox shifting his great weight, patient as a hill, the fire ticking under its clay dome like a small red heart, the wind at the northwest corner saying the thing it always says, the frost working, the beetle in the oak counting nothing, meaning nothing, keeping time anyway. Every person in this room has done a full day's work with their body. Every person in this room will do another tomorrow. And between the 2 days there is this warm, breathing dark, this fortress made of straw and wool and proximity, and it is enough. It has always been enough. Their whole world is telling them it is safe to sleep. The bar is in its brackets. The shoes point at the door. The horn hangs on its peg with 60 years of hands on it, its turn done, its duty kept. The dogs have said their one word and gone quiet. The watcher's walking somewhere out in the silver street, some other family's son this hour, taking his turn, holding up the roof of the night, and 8 miles east the monks are standing in their freezing choir, holding up their corner of it, and the stars are wheeling around the nail star exactly on time, and the moon is going down the western sky like a lamp being carried slowly out of a room. Centuries will pass. The village you have been walking through all night will change beyond recognition. The long house will fall and be ploughed and be built over and be excavated, and a student with a soft brush will kneel one summer exactly where the hearth was, and lift the broken skirt of a clay curfew dome out of the soil, and hold it up to the light, and not know, and half know. The wildwood will shrink to a copse. The street will be paved, then lit. The curfew bell will forget what it was for and become a quaint evening custom, and then a word meaning something governments do. The darkness itself, the great original darkness, will be pushed back mile by mile and bulb by bulb until children grow up who have never once seen the road of stars over their own roof, and the two sleeps will quietly fuse into one, and the watching hour will close like an eye, and the last generation to keep it will not know they are the last, and the warm crowded bed will empty out person by person, century by century, until sleeping alone in a silent room is called normal, and sleeping the old way is called history. But people will still lie down in the dark. That does not change. People will still do their day's work and come to the night with their bodies emptied and their minds too full and lie down and listen to their houses talk. They will still wake some nights, in the deep middle, for no reason they can name, and lie there in the black feeling that the hour must be for something. It is. It always was. It is the watching hour, still arriving on schedule after 700 years, still yours, and nothing whatsoever is wrong with you. You come from an unbroken line of people who woke at exactly this hour, on purpose, and prayed, and talked low, and thought their largest thoughts, and turned over and went back down. The hour is an inheritance. You're allowed to simply keep it. And the other inheritance is this, the one the whole night has been teaching, that sleep is a thing people give each other. Nobody in the year 1300 ever fell asleep by trying. They fell asleep because the fire was banked and the bar was down and the beads were said and someone warm was breathing beside them and someone cold was standing the street for them, because every single thing that could be done had been done by many hands, and after that the night could be trusted with the rest. That is still how it works. That has never stopped being how it works. So do their ritual now, the last of the night, with them. The fire is covered. Let it be covered. Whatever burned in you today, the work, the worry, the words you said and the ones you didn't, rake it together, small and warm, and put the dome over it. It will keep till morning. It does not need you to watch it. That is the whole art of the dome. The fire keeps itself. The door is barred. Let it be barred. The day is on the other side of it now, all of it, and it cannot lift an oak bar, no day ever could. The shoes are by the door, toes out, ready. Whatever tomorrow asks, you will step into it facing the right way. That is settled. That is done. Tomorrow is a country you cannot enter tonight, and the frost stands guard on all its roads. You are warm enough, you are fed enough, you are safe enough. You have a roof, and breath in the dark near yours, even if it is only mine, and a whole sleeping world lying down in rings around you. House beyond house, town beyond town, time zone beyond time zone, the greatest village there has ever been. Everyone taking their turn, someone always awake so that you don't have to be. That's more than most of history had. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Let the sounds of your own house become the longhouse now. Let the hum of whatever hums be the fire under its dome. Let the walls tick like frost in old timber. Let the darkness be the good kind, the 1300 kind, thick and total and full of nothing but sleeping neighbours. Let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took Watt on his straw in the year 1300, dropped, not lowered, straight down through the warmth into the dark. Let the world fade. Let the noise quiet. Let your thoughts slow and soften and finally stop. Your eyes are heavy. The bell rang long ago. The watch is walked. The turn is kept. Somewhere very far off a church bell is striking an hour you're too tired to count, and it does not matter, it never mattered. The night knows what time it is. First sleep now. The rest will come in its hour. You've earned this rest. Take it, and dream of whatever dreams may come. Good night.